We've got 30+% truancy rates in some places. Not only can these kids not read, we cannot even find them. The bureaucracy has failed.
So it turns out the majority of Americans are dissatisfied with the American public education system, so Donald Trump shut down the Department of Education, and now we have a ton of meltdowns to go over surrounding this topic. So in this video, that is what we will be doing. Now, before we start the video, please like the video. It's the #1 way you can help this channel, and it helps others see the videos as well. So let us begin.
Leave the kids alone.
What do you think the impact is on the children?
They're going to be hungry. If that money does not come for school lunches and breakfast, we're doing it in the state of New York, but we need the federal money to supplement our efforts here.
And when I hear Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America, I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished kids. Because we're against it.
Okay, I can hear a lot of you guys sighing already. How will the kids ever eat without the Department of Education? We will address all of those talking points, but first I want to show you a clip from Ronald Reagan to show you how relevant this whole issue has been for the longest time.
I would like to dissolve the $10 billion National Department of Education created by President Carter and turn schools back to the local school districts where we built the greatest public school system the world has ever seen. I think I can make a case that the decline in the quality of public education began when federal aid became federal interference.
So understand, as we go through these meltdowns, the concern of literacy rates and education decline was already a problem back in the 80s, and it's only gotten worse in 2025, even though we are more technologically advanced.
The Department of Education here in Washington, D.C. is overwhelmingly staffed by radical left Marxist bureaucrats who are in every way hostile to Western civilization, hostile to American interests, and hostile to our founding documents and culture. And so they are using their position and influence inside the Department of Education to try to force agendas on the American people, on our students, on our children.
Now, I think you're going to find this interesting because I'm going to show you a clip that really breaks the narrative that only Republicans want to get rid of the DOE and only Republicans seem to have an issue with the DOE. Check out this clip.
So you work for Governor Christie. What governors were told you can't do what you want to do?
Look at the Democrat governor of Hawaii, right,
Okay.
who actually has the courage to speak up and say this.
Governor Green. Yeah.
Yes. Unfunded mandates coming from Washington. You have to do this. They handcuff states.
So you're going to find this hilarious. Not only does this governor agree with Donald Trump, he also agrees with the fact that, look, when you get rid of the Department of Education, I need those dollars for things like special education, kids with disabilities, more food for our kids. Essentially agreeing that when you get rid of this institution, we will actually have more money and less bureaucracy. So I really think this breaks that mold of all of these arguments happening from people who are not even in position of like leadership for states.
Put a mock classroom. We all know he's never been in one. He wouldn't last for a minute. He's never done it. He's surrounded by people who know nothing about education, and they want to make this about bureaucracy and cutting. This is about children. This is about broadband access in their schools. This is about the research you were talking about, pedagogy, things that we learn, and then it's about the Civil Rights Department at the Department of Education that makes sure that we don't have a situation where a Ruby Bridges is escorted to school with police. And so we're back in an area where we can segregate. And he knows that curriculums and those decisions are made on a local basis, but they muddy the water. So.
Oh boy, I cannot believe what the governor of Minnesota just said. First off, it is totally illegal in the United States in 2025 to segregate. Even if you have some fringe school district who tries to implement segregation, it is illegal under federal law, despite the Department of Education not being around. Maybe the governor of Minnesota made a mistake. Maybe he's talking about the segregation of district zoning laws, which has nothing to do with the implications he's talking about. Anyway, I digress. Please leave your comments down below.
Leave the parents alone. Leave the kids alone.
What do you think the impact is on the children?
They're going to be hungry. If that money does not come for school lunches and breakfast, we're doing it in the state of New York, but we need the federal money to supplement our efforts here. And I want to make a very clear point. We get $93 billion and all kinds of support from the federal government. Now, New York, We send more than that in taxes, so we are still a donor state. But I cannot make that up. They start cutting that kind of money, I can't make that up. People are going to suffer.
All right, I want to talk to you about Aura, today's sponsor, because they're doing something really important. Look, I could go online right now, pay a few bucks, and buy anyone's personal data. It's 100% legal, no joke. Big companies get hacked every day, and your personal info is sold to scammers and spammers. They target you, and those companies face zero consequences. If the government can ban TikTok, why aren't they doing more to protect us from this? It's on us to take control, and that's why I use Aura. Aura handles the hard stuff for me. They track down where my info's being sold, and I make sure I'm off those lists. In just a few weeks, I stopped seeing my name pop up on shady sites. They also monitor the dark web for leaks and alert me if anyone tries to use my info to mess with my credit or bank accounts. And if the worst happens, they got my back up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Plus, Aura's got a VPN with 100 plus virtual locations. Does your VPN do all that? So go to my sponsor, aura.com/T-SPLY, T-S-P-L-Y, to get a 14-day free trial and see if any of your data has been exposed. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really trying to make a video that's not overly biased, but I'm just trying to give you guys the facts. The DOE has nothing to do with the food itself. Their job is just to give you the money or the funding to get the food. So instead of the states working directly with the department who's in charge of the food, like the Department of Agriculture or other local entities, now they have to have like a broker or middleman, which is why it makes sense now that you had a governor out of Hawaii said, can we just get rid of them so I can get more money and then get more food?
Yes. I don't think they're cutting the money. They want to send the money directly to the states.
That's it.
Respectfully, if this bureaucracy that is in place now at the federal and state level, no matter what state you're talking about, we're doing such a bang-up job, we wouldn't have these terrible reading scores. We wouldn't have these terrible math and science scores. Something is broken, and there's one more issue that no one's talking about, and that is the issue of truancy. We've got 30+% truancy rates in some places. Not only can these kids not read, we cannot even find them.
The bureaucracy. And when I hear Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America, I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished kids. Because we're against it. I know you are. Thank you for admitting it on such a public forum.
Now, when I was doing research for this video, as far as trying to find Democrat talking points, there was always this, what's going to happen with the children that have disabilities? And I was wondering the same thing. However, Donald Trump already addresses this.
But the department's useful functions and such as, and they're in charge of them. Pell Grants, Title I funding, resources for children with disabilities and special needs will be preserved, fully preserved. They're all going to be so. If you look at the Pell Grants, it's supposed to be a very good program. Title I funding and resources for children with special disabilities and special needs, they're going to be preserved in full and redistributed to various other agencies and departments.
So there you go. The money is going nowhere as far as helping our children in need. Now, I am going to make one critique as far as this particular topic and the way the Trump administration is trying to convey the information to the public. You often hear the DOE is being shut down. It is and it is not. Even Donald Trump admitted that, look, all of the important stuff is going to stick around, but pretty much everything else is going to be shut down. Again, I do think this causes a little bit of confusion. Even when I was doing this video, I had to really make sure, is the DOE actually shutting down, or are we going to have some components open?
As I said, Pell Grants and student loans will still be run out of the department in Washington, D.C., but the great responsibility of educating our nation's students will return to the states.
In year 2025 of where we are, proficiency rates in math for fourth grade, 39%. It goes down to 28% by eighth grade, reading 31%, which goes down to 30% by the eighth grade. And here's what the Gallup poll found. Whether or not people are satisfied with public education, 24% are satisfied, 73% dissatisfied. That is a low water mark since 2001 when they first started measuring this. That is not good something's got to change.
That's right. I mean, that's disgusting. As a parent of small children, we were just having this conversation about where you send your kids to school. And it very much is predicated on, can you get into a neighborhood with a good school? And if you can't, you're basically out of luck, because we have failed our kids for more than a generation now. This predates COVID, this trajectory of seeing these declining testing scores. And to your point, Brad, you're ever pragmatic, but your party's problem is that they are held hostage by the teachers union.
Now, I'm sure you're not surprised. There's a lot of promotion and push from the left-leaning media to try and educate, ironically, what the Department of Education does. But maybe I'm being overly biased. You should watch this clip, because I really think CNN does the DOE a disservice. I really think they're actually proving that maybe we don't need this middleman. That's just my opinion, but you can watch this for yourself, because I think it's actually a little funny the way that they presented this. And then CNN even fully admits Donald Trump is not taking away the important stuff, by the way. But we're still going to show you guys why we need the DOE anyway.
Let's take a look at what the Department of Education actually does and does not do. One of the biggest responsibilities for DOE is the management of federal funding appropriated by Congress to K through 12 schools. Two of the largest funding programs are the Title I program, which is meant to help educate children from low-income families, and the IDEA program, which provides schools with money to help meet the needs of kids with disabilities. Together, these programs account for about $28 billion that schools are provided every year. To be clear, federal funding typically accounts for roughly just 10% of all school funding. The rest comes from state and local taxes. The Department of Education also distributes about $30 billion a year to low-income college students via the Pell Grant program. Full disclosure, I got Pell Grants to help me through college. Overall, the agency manages the $1.8 trillion student loan portfolio. With that in mind, a senior Trump administration official tells CNN that neither Title I, nor IDEA, nor the federal student loan programs are going to be changed based on this executive order. Though an administration official did tell us that this order directs Secretary Linda McMahon to, quote, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states. And that is where it starts to get tricky. Politically shuttering the agency, as you just heard from Jeff Zeleny, would require an act of Congress. In Trump's first term, when he wanted to combine it with the Labor Department, lawmakers didn't bite. It's unclear how they might respond this time, but it hasn't stopped Trump's efforts to make good on his campaign promise. DOE recently announced workforce cuts of nearly 50%, and the president has pointed to the Department of Education as a sign of federal overreach, tying it to culture war issues. That's why it's important to keep in mind what the Department of Education does not do. Let's take a look. On its website, the agency says that it does not establish schools and colleges or develop curricula. It also does not set requirements for enrollment and graduation. They also do not determine state education standards. There it is right there.
Now, if you are still watching this video, I really appreciate it. I truly think a lot of these arguments and broadcasts trying to promote or educate the DOE actually does the DOE a massive disservice. Because when you actually go through the list of court cases, especially recently, you have Florida, Texas, Virginia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, South Carolina, and then we saw the governor from Hawaii had an issue of this overreach. Again, it's just simply not true that the DOE has not had a little bit of oversight or overreach on curriculum, where states have had an issue with it and felt like they've been a little bullied to, get their state funding from the DOE. You even had that governor from New York sort of imply the same thing when it came to the funding for food. So again, I do think a lot of these arguments are a little misleading, and maybe you can point out that sometimes Republicans can over-exaggerate what the DOE does, but really when you look at the history, it looks like Republicans are actually a little spot on when it comes to the overreach.
What is the biggest impact that you believe this is going to have on education across the United States? Because obviously this is something conservatives have sought to do for decades, since President Reagan was in office.
It achieves two things at once. One is it eliminates all this wokeism, this ideology from the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., issues that we had to deal with under the Biden administration. It gives more power to states who are closer to the students, closer to the parents, and more power to parents themselves.
All right, if you are still watching this video, I really appreciate it. Again, I actually understand why there is a massive outcry for getting rid of the DOE. I mean, it's called the Department of Education, and you saw the stats if you are still watching this video. There are a lot of children who are dependent on this funding. However, the main argument that you keep seeing over and over is that, well, you know, the kids, they're not going to have food. You know, they're going to still have food. Well, they're not going to have government assistance. They're still going to have it. So again, I really do think Republicans do hold the upper hand. It's only day one since I'm making this video. However, it is important to note, you know, we will still have to see how this is all implemented as far as the state's ability to get the job done. Because let's say the state of Florida can't get the job done. Maybe it was a bad idea overall to get rid of the DOE. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the meltdowns, and I hope you learned something. God bless, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.